Now, this story I'm about to tell you may change your mind about renting with Airbnb, and you're going to want to stick around till the end because it has quite the ending. So, I got a call from a client yesterday, and he had a concern, and I appreciate a client reaching out to me about anything real estate related. That is something that I always offer. His concern was that his brother had rented a property in Southwest Florida through Airbnb, and he just said he had some weird things happen and he wanted to run it by me. So, had the conversation, and here's where things get pretty fun. So let me give you a little bit of backstory. The brother rented the property through Airbnb, just like you would any other consumer going on Airbnb. Got the confirmation, was happy with what he saw online, everything was looking good about it. Well, then 2 weeks prior to coming down for his stay, the host reached out and said, hey, by the way, if anybody in the condo complex asks you who you are, just mention that you're my friend. We're going to say Matt is the host's name, so you just say you're Matt's friend. That was a little bit strange. They said, okay, all right, that's fine, we can do that. And they just weren't very familiar with anything, so they just proceeded forward. Well, the time came, their trip was here, they decided to go down and fulfill the vacation. Well, once they arrived, within a couple of days, there was a note that was placed on the door of the unit, and it said, please call me, and it was a phone number and the president of the HOA, the president of the Homeowners Association. And so they were innocent bystanders in all of this, so okay, we don't know what we did, but we'll call. So the tenants reached out to the president of the HOA, and the president of the HOA asked, who are you? And like, we don't know who you are. And they said, well, we are friends with Matt. They did what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to say they're friends with Matt, and so that's what they did. But it didn't go quite that way. The president of the HOA knew that something was up here and said, listen, don't lie to me. Tell me what's actually going on here. So now they're backed into a corner. These innocent people are backed into a corner, and so they tell the truth. They don't have anything to hide. They did everything right. And so they said, well, actually, we rented the place through Airbnb. Matt told us if anybody asked us who we were, that we should say that we're friends of Matt's. And that's when the president of the HOA gave them the news that they are not actually welcomed in the neighborhood. They didn't have an application. And here's where it gets most interesting. So Matt, who did this rental through Airbnb, doesn't actually own the property. That's the craziest part. So who is Matt? Matt rents the property, and then he sublet it through Airbnb to work to make additional money during our high season months. And so the term for this is called AirBNB arbitrage. And so the owner didn't have any idea that Matt was going to be subleasing the owner's property to these other people. And Matt's just sitting here trying to say, hey, well, if I'm renting for this and I can rent it out for this much money, I'm going to make all that additional money. This is a great win-win without me taking any real significant risks, because Matt doesn't have to pay any of the HOA dues or any of the liabilities or handle any of the repairs. And so it seemed like a pretty good deal for Matt. But here's the deal. Here's the problem. A, the lease didn't allow for that, so Matt wasn't allowed to sublease that property. B, the Homeowners Association, we have lots of them in Southwest Florida. They have a formal application process for any renters. Also, they have rules and regulations about how long the rental can happen, so the minimum time frame. So in this particular situation, the minimum rental was 90 days. And so with 90 days, if you're only doing a 5-week lease, that's a problem, and the HOA wouldn't allow for that anyway. So now we've got a crazy situation where we have innocent Airbnb, people who rented a property on Airbnb, who are in a place that they're not welcomed into, where Matt is the only one who broke all of the rules here. So what happens next? My client was just very afraid that something bad was going to happen to his brother. Understandably so. So I am not an attorney, this is not legal advice, but there's a few things that happened and a few things that went wrong, and here's what's likely going to happen in this scenario, is that the HOA is going to restrict access to amenities, right? These are people who are not allowed to be on property, they've not gone through the proper background checks or anything in regards to that, so that is a real potential issue. Now, if the HOA wanted to be take a strong stance on this, they could actually go through with an eviction. Like, the association did not approve of these people residing in the community, and the association docs typically give the right and the authority to that homeowners association to evict somebody who's not welcome there. So they could go about it that way, but he's only here for about 5 weeks, so the chances of that eviction going all the way through in the 5 weeks is pretty slim. Probably not worth the HOA doing. But the big ramification in all of this is obviously Matt's going to get in trouble because the homeowners association has the authority to put fines on and penalize the property owner, who's going to get upset. Then we've got Matt's deposit. It's just a total cluster. Like, this has just caused so many issues for so many people. Now, this Airbnb arbitrage, it's an actual thing. It's an actual thing where people are doing that around the country. And that can work if you do it legally. So if you legally rent property from somebody, you're allowed to sublease that. It's a good idea to let the landlord know, this is my intention to do this, get their approval on that. That's all perfectly legal. Where we run into issues here is that we have a homeowners association that didn't know anything about it. It wasn't allowed on the lease. I haven't seen that lease, but that's what my understanding is. And that's where all of the issues came to happen. So how do we protect you from something like this happening? Now, I love short-term rentals. I love Airbnb, VRBO, all those sites. I think it's a great thing to get a new experience. But you have to do your own research, right? We're trying to CYA with all of this. And a good way to start is reviews, right? Does the place have reviews? How many reviews? Read through those reviews. Make sure that this is a legitimate property that can be rented. And secondly, see how long that property's been on Airbnb. If it's a brand new property with no reviews, you're really taking the risk that something here is going on that may not be good. Now, obviously, there can be great situations where a new property comes on the market, but figure out, maybe you can talk to the host and figure out who the owner is and what their relationship is. You can message the host about that. But just please do me a favor and protect yourself at all costs. There are scammers out there. There's people putting people into bad situations without their knowing, without them having anything to do with this happening. So anyway, that is the crazy story. Just take care of yourself, people. It's crazy out there. Remember to like and subscribe. Have an awesome day.